South Korea's National Assembly rejected a motion to arrest the leader of the main opposition party, Lee Jae-myung, over corruption and bribery allegations. It's still hugely damaging to his leadership, though, as many of his own party voted for his arrest. Seoul and Washington will seek to hold follow-up joint exercises to further beef up the extended deterrence. This coming from the South Korean ambassador to the U.S. ahead of the Freedom Shield exercise set to take place next month. A powerful 5.6 magnitude aftershock has pounded Türkiye, killing at least one person and toppling more buildings. On Monday, South Korea's National Assembly rejected a motion to arrest the leader of the main opposition party, Lee Jae-myung, over corruption and bribery allegations. Relief for the troubled politician, but still a huge damage to his leadership as many of his own party voted for his arrest. Our Han Sang-woo starts us off this morning.
South Korea's National Assembly, after a considerable delay due to vote counting complications, has rejected the motion seeking parliamentary consent for arresting Democratic Party of Korea chairman Lee Jae-myung. In an anonymous vote during Monday's plenary session, 139 out of 297 lawmakers present voted for the motion, while 138 voted against. There were also 9 abstentions and 11 invalid votes. 2 particular votes caused confusion after the Assembly couldn't firmly establish whether they were votes against the motion or invalid votes. In the end, after discussions with the ruling People Power Party and the Democratic Party, Speaker of the Assembly Kim Jin-pyo announced that one would be counted as a vote against the motion and the other an invalid vote.
Keep quiet, please. The matter has already been discussed with the floor leaders and those supervising the vote count.
The Democratic Party holds 169 out of 299 seats in Parliament, and while Parliament is in session, prosecutors had required by law a majority of registered lawmakers to be present when the motion was put to a vote, and a majority of those lawmakers in attendance to approve it, meaning 149 votes for the motion were needed on Monday for it to be passed. The result comes less than 2 weeks after the prosecution requested an arrest warrant for Lee on allegations of corruption linked to property development projects launched when he was mayor of Seongnam City and third-party bribery involving Seongnam Football Club. It was the first time in the nation's constitutional history that prosecutors had sought such a warrant for the sitting leader of a main opposition party. Despite the prosecution failing to win parliamentary consent, it's widely expected they will indict the opposition leader without detaining him, or request another arrest warrant after further investigation into other matters. Meanwhile, Monday's meeting also saw legislators pass a government reorganization plan that includes the launch of a new agency under the Foreign Ministry devoted to consular affairs, dealing specifically with the lives and interests of Koreans overseas. The revision will also see the nation's Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs upgraded to a cabinet-level government body. Han Sang-woo, Arirang News.
According to the South Korean ambassador to the U.S., both countries have further strengthened their combined deterrence against North Korean threats following their nuclear response exercises held in Washington last week. And more follow-up joint drills are to come. Our Lee Dae-hyun reports.
The South Korean ambassador to the U.S., Cho Tae-yong, on Monday said that Seoul and Washington made practical progress in strengthening extended deterrence, referring to the U.S. using the full range of its military capabilities, including nuclear weapons. Following the 8th Deterrence Security Committee tabletop exercise last week in Washington, which mainly focused on the response to any potential use of nuclear weapons by North Korea, Cho said the two countries will seek to hold follow-up exercises in the very near future. Highlighting that Seoul's top officials will put more effort into making the North return to dialogue, Cho also mentioned that the North's provocations would only result in international sanctions and further isolation of the North from the global community. Meanwhile, the U.S. Undersecretary of State for International Security and Arms Control Bonnie Jenkins also mentioned North Korea's missile launches during the United Nations Disarmament Conference held in Geneva on Monday. She said the string of ballistic missile launches and recent nuclear test preparations by the North cannot be disregarded by international society. On top of that, the U.S. also underscored it has no hostile intent toward the North after Pyongyang warned that Washington's provocations against the regime will be considered a declaration of war. U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price said Monday that multiple tests of ICBM, ballistic missiles, and other provocative activities by the North have posed a threat to peace and security in the Indo-Pacific. He also reaffirmed Washington's continued commitment to finding diplomatic solutions, saying there is still an opportunity for Pyongyang to engage in talks. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
North Korea is gearing up for a revolution in crop production in the next few years, as the regime grapples with worsening food shortages. Pyongyang state-run media reported on Tuesday that the regime's leader Kim Jong-un decided that the agricultural reform was to be the top agenda of the Workers' Party's key plenary meeting that kicked off on Sunday. State media said that Kim Jong-un projected confidence and was aiming for the successful harvest this year first. However, no details are out on the specific reform measures. Second and third on the agenda, respectively, were setting economic development guidelines and improving the regime's finances. The finalized agendas will likely be adopted on Tuesday. The 52nd session of the UN Human Rights Council kicked off in Geneva on Monday, and North Korea will inevitably be on the agenda. For more, we're joined by Ms. Lee Shin-hwa. She's the South Korean ambassador for North Korean human rights. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. First off, UN Human Rights Resolution has been adopted for 18 years in a row, and if adopted this year, it'll be the 19th time in a row. Why do you think it continues to be recognized and adopted?
Yes, as you said, it will be the 19th time without break to adopt the UN Human Rights Council on North Korean human rights. I think the fact that it is continuously discussed and adopted this issue and adopted by the UN Human Rights Council is a very clear evidence or proof of how serious the North Korean issue is and how serious the international community is considered about this problem. Despite concerns that United States and China's conflict and also like a confrontation between US and Russia because of the Ukraine crisis are intensifying over the past years, there have been a big concern in the United Nations, the boards on many issues, even such as climate change, are divided by many member states. But the North Korean human rights issue, both at the New York General Assembly meeting and the UN Human Rights Council's meeting in Geneva, which will take place the late March. From today to the April, I think the most probably they will again adopt this problem by consensus. So I think that indicates this North Korean human rights issue has more or less having an international consensus. However, I think we still have to concern about how we can internationalize or more publicize this issue, I would say global wide. The reason is because this problem, together with the other North Korean problem issue, including nuclear problem, have been there for decades. So I think there are some kind of fatigue phenomena there as well. So how we can overcome this kind of problems so that we can make sure how we cannot make this issue being sidelined no matter what kind of political or international issues are coming up. So I think that's kind of our task, including myself as an ambassador of international cooperation on North Korean human rights.
Sure, it does need more calling and recognition on the international level. That's why it continues to be adopted for 18 years in a row now. And what content in terms of human rights issues do you think should be included in this year's resolution? I mean, any particular agenda?
Okay. Before I say that, I have to briefly tell you what we mean by North Korean human rights problems. So in my opinion, at least there are three important components. Number one, North Korean people's human rights problems within North Korea, which has been largely, abused by the North Kim Jong-un regime. And number two is defectors in outside North Korea, including China, and also overseas laborers who have to make money and to just send them to the North Korea, their home country. Then third is our own people. What I mean is those POW and also post-war abductees, as well as pre-war abductees and the detainees. So I think at this time as well, the issues of human rights violation of North Korea is just something they always talk about, like arbitrary torture, public execution, political prisoners camp, and like a freedom and social right issue, which is turned out to be the UN basic right for the people. That those things have always been discussed, and I think that will be again emphasized. But in addition to this, I hope that condemnation of the atrocity committed by North Korean regime, such as the issue of post-war abductees and detainees and the prisoner of wars, as I mentioned, will be openly discussed. That's my hope. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, I had a public discussion with these family members, with Jong Park, who is a deputy representative of the U.S. deputy representative of the North Korean issue. So I think it was a very meaningful time for us and for the United States, because they had only held a public meeting for Japanese abductees in the past, but they officially agree with me to make this meeting public, to meet with our abductees' family. So, as she mentioned as well, there was not the only one-time event, but that will be the beginning of the meetings to come, so that we can internationally publicize why this kind of issue have to be dealt seriously. So I think they will discuss about it at the UN and international level as well. So I hope in this resolution, this important issue should be included, and then at least some of them who've been there for a long while, and as well as those family members who are staying in our country suffer a great deal. So hopefully we can just address that problem at least to some extent. So for that, I hope this time's UN resolution will include this important issue as well.
Mm-hmm. It's no doubt that the resolution will be adopted again this year, but we'll have to see what changes or details will be newly added. All right. Thank you, Ambassador, for your time this morning and also for your service.
Thank you very much.
Türkiye is still trying to recover from the devastating earthquakes that killed tens of thousands of people. Making matters worse, the country on Monday saw a new magnitude 5.6 quake shake the country. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
Yet another earthquake slammed Türkiye on Monday. This time, a magnitude 5.6 earthquake struck the southeastern region of the country, killing one and injuring over 100 others. Authorities say Yesiyurt in Malatya province was the epicenter of the latest quake, an area that has already experienced 4 earthquakes in the past 3 weeks, as well as over 10,000 aftershocks. Speaking to local media, Yesiyurt's mayor Mehmet Sinar said a number of buildings in the town collapsed, including a 4-story building where 2 people, a father and daughter, were trapped inside. The latest quake comes at a time when the country is still trying to recover from the massive earthquakes on February 6th, which killed tens of thousands of people. Meanwhile, according to a World Bank disaster assessment report released Monday, the cost of earthquake damage in Türkiye is estimated to exceed $34 billion. And that figure is only based on the damage done by the two earthquakes on February 6th. That figure is equivalent to 4% of Türkiye's 2021 GDP. However, the World Bank assesses the recovery and reconstruction costs will be even bigger, estimating a figure twice that of the cost of damage. Syria's World Bank disaster assessment report was conducted separately and is set to be released on Tuesday. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen made a surprise visit to Ukraine on Monday to reaffirm Washington's continued economic support for the war-torn nation. During the visit, Yellen announced $1.25 billion in economic aid for schools and hospitals in Ukraine. At a separate one-on-one meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky, Yellen praised the Ukrainian leaders' push to strengthen governance and address corruption, ensuring U.S. economic aid is being spent responsibly. Yellen also discussed additional sanctions on Russia, including talks on confiscating frozen Russian assets to benefit Ukraine's recovery. The South Korean national football has appointed Jurgen Klinsmann as its new head coach for Team Korea. The Korea Football Association announced that the former German World Cup winner will lead the Taeguk Warriors through the next World Cup in the USA, Canada, and Mexico in just over 3 years from now. Klinsmann will make his official debut as a head coach for Team Korea at the friendly match against Colombia in Ulsan on March 24th. As a head coach, he led Germany to the third place in 2006 World Cup and the U.S. to the round of 16 in the 2014 World Cup in Brazil. An unprecedented collection of white porcelain made during the Joseon Dynasty period is open to the public from today. Our Kim Jong-sil went to the exhibition here in Seoul and files this report.
Joseon 백자, white porcelain made during the Joseon Dynasty, fills this black room. With the lights showing just the individual vessels, they look like stars in a night sky.
A jaw-dropping collection of 31 porcelain vessels, more than half of all the Joseon Dynasty porcelain designated as treasures or national treasures, is under one roof here at the Leeum Museum.
Those porcelain items were made from the end of the 14th century here in Korea. Joseon 백자 is extremely difficult to make, and the material to make the color cost as much as gold, so when they were first made, only the king and members of the royal family were able to possess them.
Korean white porcelain from the Joseon Dynasty has a harmonious appearance and essence, unlike the fancier vases of other countries. I hope visitors can discover the virtue and value that people during the Joseon Dynasty were aiming for.
The exhibition consists of 4 categories. The first section includes this unprecedented collection of porcelain vessels made for king and the royal family, a pinnacle of Joseon white porcelain production. The second section introduces more colorful vessels that became bigger and had unique designs. The third section consists of items from the period of hardship during the invasion from neighboring countries such as Japan and China. During those times, the ingredients to make the blue color weren't easy to import, so porcelain makers in Joseon used iron instead, giving the designs a brown color. Finishing off the collection is the section of pure white porcelain. The exhibition of these prestigious items, which represent the peak of Joseon 백자, runs until May 28th. The exhibition is free of charge, but visitors must book their spots online 2 weeks in advance. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
For a look at the news from around the world, we now turn to our Matthew Ashley joining us here in the studio. Good morning, Matthew.
Good morning, Dambi.
Let's start in the UK, where a new Brexit deal for Northern Ireland has been announced.
Well, that is right. Following months of private negotiations between the UK and the European Union, a new trade deal called the Windsor Framework was unveiled on Monday local time. Now, this after a meeting between UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak and President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen. Now, it replaces the much criticised Northern Ireland Protocol, which was introduced after Brexit in an attempt to avoid a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Now, the new framework will see products going from the rest of the UK into Northern Ireland divided into green and red lanes. The green lane for goods that will remain in Northern Ireland will have minimal checks and paperwork. The red lane for goods that could be bound for the Republic of Ireland or the rest of the EU will be subject to normal checks. Meanwhile, Canada has banned TikTok from all government-issued devices as of Tuesday local time. Now, announced the previous day, the ban means that the app will be removed from the devices and that government employees also won't be able to download the application in the future. The Canadian government says the Chinese-owned short video platform presents a, quote, unacceptable level of risk to privacy and security. Now, TikTok has since expressed its disappointment at the ban, saying that the decision was made without highlighting any specific security concerns. The move follows a similar decision by the European Union to ban the app in official settings last week. Moving over to Türkiye now, where thousands of teddy bears rained down onto a football pitch during a match at Istanbul's Vodafone Stadium on Sunday. The plush toys were thrown by spectators and will be donated to children who survived the deadly earthquakes which struck Türkiye and Syria in early February, killing over 50,000 people. Now, competing clubs Beşiktaş and Antalyaspor made room for the gesture by stopping the match at 4 minutes and 17 seconds, reflecting the time that the quakes first hit the country at 4:17 a.m. Meanwhile, some spectators directed criticism at the Turkish government over its response to the disaster and brandished signs calling for resignations. And finally, a flower war has broken out in the streets of the Greek fishing town of Galaxidi. Now, the scenes are all part of carnival celebrations that took place on Monday local time. The day saw hundreds of revelers throw brightly colored flour at each other whilst wearing protective goggles and disposable clothes for protection. Called Clean Monday, the annual event marks the end of carnival season and the beginning of the Greek Orthodox Lent. It's said that the tradition began as an act of defiance in the 19th century after Greece's occupiers, the Ottomans, banned carnival celebrations at the time.
Good morning. It will continue to feel like we're going through two seasons in one day. Temperature gaps will be wider for southern provinces as sub-zero temperatures this morning will hike to the mid to upper teens by the afternoon. And especially those in Gyeongju will notice temperatures jumping more than 20 degrees Celsius from a cold morning. Meanwhile, the dry spell becomes more impactful with strong wind in east of Gangwon-do province. So we need to stay on high alert against wildfires, please. In fact, 1 out of 3 wildfires reported is caused by hikers. The dust level will be bad in some parts of the country, and that's including here in Seoul, but we will see a return to more breathable air by the afternoon. Now, the daily highs in Seoul will be at 10 degrees Celsius, Gwangju topping out at 16 degrees under partly to mostly sunny skies. The light rain is in the forecast in Gyeonggi-do and Jeju tomorrow, which is Independence Movement Day here in South Korea. Then it will be a chilly morning on Thursday. With that in mind, here's a look at the weather conditions around the globe.
That wraps up today's New Day at Arirang. Do stay with us for more updates throughout the day. Thanks for watching.